So again, this is going to be exactly like the quiz. Number one, first question on the quiz will be exactly this, to state the GCF of that fifth degree polynomial or trinomial.
It's 2x.
2x is the correct answer. Thank you very much.
Isn't it 4x?
No.
Well,
Oh, no.
yeah. So, I mean, 4, but right here you can't pull out a 4 from the 6, right? So, yeah, 2, 2, and 2, and x, and x. The GCF is 2x. So, we got to be careful because it's not your regular multiple choice. What do I mean by that? It's not ABCD, it's ABCDEF. So, it is possible, like tomorrow, maybe right here, I have a 3x instead of a 2x. And you know that your answer is 2x, right? Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be there, so you would say none of these, right? Or maybe tomorrow, let's say I put this as a 5 and this as a 7 without an x. Then you wouldn't even be able to factor it at all, so you would say not factorable. So we have all these different options. Let's take a look at another one. This one should be very easy. Why is that? Why is it easy? Because a equals 1, right? Okay, so we should be able to just jump right into this. And what times what is 32? That if you combine together is negative 18. Let's make a list. You got 1 times 32. You got 2 times 16. You have 3 doesn't work. You have 4 times 8. 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. We're done. Which pair of numbers combines together to give us negative 18? Okay, again, the thought process, what times what is C? That if you combine together is B. And we just said 2 and 16 gives us 18, but we want it to be a negative 18, right? So we have the right numbers, we just have the wrong signs. So let's put that negative and that negative, and we're good. You end up with a minus 2 right in here and a minus 16 right there. Now, notice what I'm asking. I'm not saying which of the following are the factored form of the whole thing. I'm saying which one are factors, right? So what's the correct answer? C is the only one. Now, if on tomorrow's quiz, this is a negative 16 also, so you'd have both, you would circle both. Okay, so it is possible to have 2 answers. So it's not like your regular multiple choice. Oh, the answer is C, it can't be any other one. No, it could actually be, if this would have been a minus 16, it'd actually be the answer A and C. You'd circle both. Any questions? All right.
What do you circle?
If you circle one and you're supposed to circle both, then I'll give you half credit. Okay? So let's try another. This one's way more challenging, and on the quiz itself, it'll be worth twice as much. Okay. By the way, I will give you space on each of these multiple choice questions so you could show your work. If you don't show your work, even if you have the right answer, you're not going to get credit. So please show your work. Step 1 is to multiply A times C. So A times C gives you a negative 18. By the way, feel free to write this down if you want. If not, you could do this, or you could watch it again at home. Step 2 is to think of the multiples of that answer. Negative 1 times 18, negative 2 times 9, negative 3 times 6, negative 4 doesn't work. That's about it. So which pair of numbers combines together to give us the B value? Negative 2 and positive 9. That will give us a 7. That's great. So let's change those signs so we could get that negative 7. So we're going to put a negative or a positive 2 right here and a negative 9 right there. Now here's where it gets weird. Step 3 is to rewrite it as 4 terms instead of 3 terms. So you have 6x squared, and instead of the minus 7x, let's rewrite it as plus 2x minus 9x. And then at the very end we have this minus 3. It's still there, the minus 3. So why would we change 3 terms to 4 terms so we could factor by grouping? So the first step on factoring by grouping is to make space between the 2 groups, the first 2 and the, oh, that's not going to work. Let's try that again. Let's make space between our first 2 and our second 2. So we have 6x squared plus 2x space minus 9x minus 3. And then you factor something out of your first group, factor something out of your second group. What could I pull out of that first group? 2x. And what would be left on the inside? 3x plus 1. How about the second group? What could I pull out? Negative 3. And what do I have left? 3x plus 1. All right, so now we exaggerate the parentheses. By the way, you don't have to exaggerate the parentheses. I just do it so you could see it. And you pull out that common binomial, which happens to be 3x plus 1. And what would be left on the inside? You have that 2x. You have that minus 3, and that's what you have left. Factored form is 3x plus 1 times 2x minus 3. So, which multiple choice answer would be the correct one? A. Any other ones? Nope. If you're thinking B, that's not right because it's supposed to be a 2x minus 3, not a plus 3. Moving on. That's 2 points, not just 1 point. It's twice as hard, twice as long, twice worth the points. How about this guy? Easy peasy. B and D? Okay, so how about this? Let's work through it. What times what is 18?
1 times 8.
2 times? 3 times? 6? What pair of numbers combines together to give us a middle value 11? 2 and 9? But you have to change the signs. -2, -9. So yes, the correct answer is what you guys said, B and D. So you have to write both on your answers. If you only write one, you only get half credit. Number 5. What can you do right here on number 5? What can you do on number 5? Anybody? Help me out here. Multiply A and C. Okay, so step 1. Multiply A times C. What do we get? 100. What's step 2? Make a list. So you have 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 3 times, doesn't work, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, 8 doesn't work, 10 times 10. Those are all the possible ways. Is there a quicker way of doing this?
Maybe.
Square root. You have a perfect square term there, perfect square term there. You might be able to square root them, plug them into your answer format, and you'll have your factored form answer. So the square root of 25x squared is 5x. The square root of 4 is 2. So you have a 5x and a 2, a 5x and a 2. Now, what signs belong right here? Do I put both positives, both negatives, or one positive, one negative? Both negatives. Okay. That's our best guess because the only way we're going to end up with a positive 4 is a -2 times a -2. That way, when we distribute, the inside middle term will end up being negative. So yeah, both negative is a great choice. And if you happen to circle this answer, guess what?
It's wrong.
It's wrong. What? Why is it wrong? Remember, just because you have a perfect square term in the front and in the back doesn't guarantee that this works. You have to double check your answer. And if we were to double check it, 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 5x times -2 is -10x. -2 times 5x is another -10x. -2 times -2 is +4. What do I need to do with these middle terms? Combine them. I end up with a -20x. Is this middle term up here -20x? No, so the whole thing went to poop. Right? It just doesn't work. Even if you try to keep going down here, what's step 2? Find the pair of numbers that combines together to give you -10. That gives you 101. That gives you 52. That gives you 29. That gives you 20. That gives you 25. None of these will give you -10. So what does that tell you about this whole problem? Not factorable. Boom. All right. Go for it. Give me the answer. What do you say?
6, x equals +6, x equals,
Oh.
x minus 1.
X. So what's the answer? None of those, right? Let's take it a step at a time. What times what is C that if you combine together is B? Let's make a list. The only way to get -6 is -1 times 6 or -2 times 3. There's only 2 possibilities. If you combine the -1 and the 6, what do you get? You get 5, and you want a -5. So this is good. You get the right number, just the wrong sign. So go ahead and change that to a +1, change that to a -6, and you're ready to go. X plus 1 minus 6. When you're looking for that, right here on these multiple choice answers, none of them are there. So you're going to say none of these are correct. There's going to be one like this, not multiple choice, open response. So the instructions are going to say solve the quadratic by applying the zero product property. So what must I do if I need to apply the zero product property?
Have 3 on this side of it.
Make it equal 0. Yeah, subtract 3, move it over to this side. So you will have 12x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. And then you go through that whole process again, right? A times C. Should we go through it or?
We should, I don't know.
I'll go through it quickly. How's that? Step 1, A times C. A is 12, C is negative 3. That's negative 36. So see if I make a mistake because I'm going so fast. Step 2, make a list. Negative 1 times 36, negative 2 times 18, negative 3 times 12, negative 4 times 9, negative 5 doesn't work, negative 6 times 6. Out of these pair of numbers, which ones combine together to give us the middle value B, which happens to be a positive 5?
4 and 9.
4 and 9. And I do not have to change any signs. It actually gives me that plus 5 that I need right there in the middle. So the next step is to rewrite it, 12x squared. But instead of the middle term 5x, I'm going to rewrite it as negative 4x plus 9x. And I still have the minus 3 at the very end. And it's still going to be equal to 0. But you know what? I'm going to hold off on this equals 0. I'm just going to take it at the end later. I'm going to put it at the end later. And if you notice, I already wrote these 4 terms separate, first group, second group. That way you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's kind of like doing 2 steps in one. So the first group, what could I pull out?
A 2x.
A 2 and an x. What's even better than 2?
Oh, 4x.
4x, right? Always go for the GCF, the greatest. And what would be left over on the inside? 3x minus 1. And how about that second group? That's a 9. So that second group, what could I pull out of there? A positive 3. And what would be left over on the inside? 3x minus 1. Okay, so I do have a common binomial. I'm going to write it out here. Outside of the exaggerated parentheses, you have 3x minus 1 right there. And on the inside of the exaggerated parentheses, what do I have left?
4x plus
4x plus 3. Now keep in mind, this is barely factoring. And it is an equation that we had set equal to 0. So this equals 0 needs to come down right here equals 0. So I now have something times something equals 0, which means I could split the somethings and set them each equal to 0. 3x minus 1, that could equal 0. 4x plus 3, that could also equal 0. So you'd have to solve both of those and get 2 fractions as answers. They're pretty ugly. So you're going to have 3x equaling 1, divide by 3, x equals 1/3. That's one answer. Subtract 3, 4x equals negative 3. Divide by 4, x equals negative 3/4. That's your other answer. I said, dang, it's a lot of work. And the last 4 questions are going to be what we did at the beginning of class, which was simplifying radicals. Should we see some of these? Just might as well. Right here, the square root of 32, that's not a perfect square number. What would I rewrite this as with multiplication? Don't say 4 and 8. 4 and 8 is great, but there's a better combo. 16 times 2. So if you did rewrite it as 16 times 2, that way when you split the root, you end up with square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 2 stays. But this multiplication of 3 out in the front needs to come down as well. So 3 times 4 is 12 with the square root of 2 at the very end. That's your answer right there. There's going to be one of those, just one, on the quiz tomorrow. And the Casio could actually do it for you. Now there's going to be one of these on the quiz tomorrow, but the Casio cannot do this. The calculator cannot do this. Why? Because it doesn't have this variable button of x. So we need to understand that we would like an even power in here, because when you do the square root of an even power, it's simply dividing it by 2. But this is an odd power. You can't divide it by 2. So let's rewrite it with multiplication to get what we want. So instead of x to the 9th, let me rewrite that as x to the 8th times x to the 1. And of course, it's still under that square root. I'm going to split the root now, the square root of x to the 8 and the square root of x. And we could now do this square root of x to the 8th, which is what?
4.
X to the 4th. bring down the square root of x, you're done. Man, my hand's going numb of writing so much. I should stop after I do the number 3. What do I do for number 3?
Oh, add 5.
Add 5, add 5, cancels. We have 6 parentheses x minus 5 squared equals 24.
Divide by 6.
Divide by 6. We end up with x minus 5 squared equals 4. How do I get rid of that square? Square root, which you do to one side, do to the other. We end up with x minus 5. Now, I did apply a square root, which means I have to put what? Plus or minus in front of that answer 2. So for my final step, here we go. Final couple of steps here. Add 5, cancels. X equals positive 5 plus or minus 2. I suggest to rewrite it and then do both situations. The positive 5 plus 2, which gives you 7 as an answer, and also the 5 minus 2, which gives you a 3 as an answer. So there's definitely, I believe, 2 of these guys on the quiz tomorrow. Okay, so it is a total of 20 questions. I've pretty much covered every single question there is. Good luck.